Welcome to Glow for Hope, sparking conversation on mental health, where we break the silence, build community, and ignite hope. We're here to talk about what really matters: mental health, wellness, and the conversations that help us all feel seen and supported. Every episode will bring real stories, expert insights, and practical tools to help you navigate mental wellness and suicide prevention. Because together, we can change the conversation. Let's get started. Welcome to another episode of Glow for Hope, sparking conversation on mental health. I'm Kelly Pelker, your host, and as always, I'm so grateful you're here. At Glow for Hope, we believe conversations can change lives, not the big, dramatic, perfectly worded conversations, but the small, everyday ones. The ones that happen at kitchen tables, in locker rooms, in offices, in cars, and sometimes in the quiet moments when someone finally says, "I'm not okay." This show exists for one person at a time, whether you're quietly struggling yourself or you care deeply about someone who is. Today's conversation is about something many of us don't even realize we're part of: how silence gets trained and what happens long before someone reaches a crisis point. Because if we want people to talk sooner, we have to understand why they stopped in the first place. I'm honored to welcome Dr. Olivia Johnson to the studio today. Dr. Johnson is a nationally recognized speaker, author, and thought leader whose work explores how identity, culture, expectations, and cumulative stress shape the way people experience struggle, and why so many don't speak up until things escalate. Through her Fatal 10 framework and her broader work across professions, families, and communities, she helps us understand not just what crisis looks like, but what happens in the quieter moments leading up to it. Olivia, welcome to Glow for Hope.
Thank you, Kelly, for having me. I'm honored.
So you talk about how silence isn't random. It's learned. Can you help us understand how people get trained not to speak up about what they're struggling with?
Yeah, it's one of these things I hear all the time is, why didn't so-and-so come to me when they were struggling? Or, you have a suicide and then everybody says, well, why didn't they reach out? Well, the reason they didn't reach out is because we want a fix that happens in less than 5 minutes, that doesn't inconvenience us, that isn't too uncomfortable to have, right? Because when people start talking about real issues and their real problems, it becomes very uncomfortable for everyone around us. And if we can't solve it in 5 minutes and move on back to our lives, we don't want to talk about it.
That's so crazy in this world of instant gratification.
Yes.
It carries over into that. So where do you see families, schools, teams, or workplaces, even with the best of intentions, unintentionally reinforcing silence?
Yeah, well, we hear it all the time, especially when we're in the airport. If you see something, say something, right? If you see a bag laying out, say something. But the first time somebody says something, they're almost ostracized. It's like, why would you bring that up? Why would you point that out? And it's like we're training them to do one thing, but then we're telling them on the other hand that they're bad that they did it. It's like being in school and getting bullied and telling the teacher you're being bullied, and then you're called a name for tattling. It's like, what are we doing here? We're reinforcing both sides, and we want it to work, but it really hasn't worked yet.
So weird. So weird. So what are some common responses that seem supportive on the surface, but may actually be shutting conversations down?
Oh, I think the big ones for me that really kind of rub me the wrong way. I know they have good intention, but it's the slogans that we throw around. It's okay not to be okay. Smash the stigma. It's little things that we say because we think it's going to help somebody. And what it does is it tells them, we don't have time for a full conversation. I'm going to leave you with that and hope it all works out. And that's kind of where we've gone with these slogans. Like, we say it, but they don't go anywhere. And people are left going, that doesn't help me. Like, I need some real substance here. I need something serious to help me. And I think that's where a lot of my research comes from. As I said, it's really sad, but I think we've reached this, what I call peak saturation in the prevention field. I feel like we have done a lot of these things with all good intentions in most cases, and yet our numbers continue to climb. And we're sitting here today going, we just need more money to fix it. And I'm like, it's not a money problem. It's a thought problem. It's a heart problem. It's all these things that we need to stop waiting for people to get into crisis. It would be much easier to have a conversation about somebody in a relationship that was failing before it started failing and be able to help them through the little things that they had come up in life than it is to wait till they're in full-blown divorce and they're waiting on papers to get served, and then we have a major crisis.
Right. And it's a bit, that's one of the things that we've struggled with as far as Glow for Hope. It's like, okay, there's so many entry points into this.
Yes.
Where do we start? Do we start with the younger ones? Do we start with the older ones?
I think you just jump in.
And that's pretty much what we have done. And one of the things I think that we're trying to separate ourselves on is not just throwing that stuff around, sparking the conversations, but also giving people the tools to know how to implement the things that so many things tell you.
Yes.
You get this checklist. Okay, well, look for this, look for this, look for this. Okay, well, how do I do that? And when I find it, what do I do?
Exactly. And that's, sadly, that's where we're kind of at today is we do this checklist thing. We talk about the signs and symptoms. We throw a bunch of stuff out there thinking that we're doing good. But most people know kind of what to look for. It's the action piece that we miss. And what we say is, well, we've already, we've kind of thrown out this stuff. We've already got the action pieces not working, but we shouldn't have this many people in crisis. And that's where we kind of said, listen, let's stop the presses for a second. Like we're not trying to upset a bunch of people or have a bunch of people mad at us. But if our common goal is to save lives, right, and is to stop people from dying by suicide and other adverse outcomes, then we've got to do something different here. What we're doing is simply not working, and no one wants to talk about it. So I've been able to open up those lines of communication and say, listen, we appreciate what you've done to this point, but if my loved one is in the balance here, and I know that we're going to continue to do the same thing with the same money and the same outcomes, then I don't want to be a part of this anymore, and I will be doing something separately, which is what we call the inoculation paradigm. We said, listen, we can predict with some certainty human behavior and what people do. And we can predict with some certainty some of the risk factors that come with your gender, your age, your race, your ethnicity, your occupation, those type of things. So if we can predict that with some certainty, then we can also go ahead of that and we can fix those issues before they even become issues. And that's kind of what we're starting to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So when you think about like roles and identity, there's the being the strong one, the dependable one, the helper. Does it kind of make it harder for someone to admit that they're struggling?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm a type A. But I've learned to become more of a type B where I like my creative side. But I'm very rigid in my thinking. I can be very right and wrong, white and black, very dichotomous. That makes it even harder for certain occupations that are that way and certain individuals that think that way. Mm-hmm. Because here's the truth. We say we want you to reach out for help, but not one person does. Now, let's be really clear here. When you're talking about certain occupations like police work or firefighters or lawyers or whatever, we say that and we do mean it. But have you seen anybody reach out? I haven't. Right. And when they do, we ostracize them. We act like they're not strong enough. There's questions about if they're going to be okay at work. It's like that's why people don't reach out because they know the reality of reaching out. Mm-hmm. So that's not working either. So something has got to change here because the truth is we tell them to reach out and we tell them it's a safe space. But the first time it's not safe, guess what? They tell everybody they know and everybody stops coming for help. So what we need to do differently is we need to predict, and we can do that. We can predict that a lot of people that face trauma, that have ACEs, that have all these things in common, that they are going to have issues. So instead of waiting for those issues to come out, we should be predicting them happening, and we should set along the timeline here that, hey, before you come into this occupation, you probably need to get some additional assistance. We can mandate some stuff through legislation, which is another thing that I've been looking at, is possibly mandating a 2-week intensive treatment program to address those issues before you're ever accepted into any type of program that's considered high stress, public service, those type of things. Mm-hmm. And then throughout your career, you should be flagged. Everyone in the occupation should be flagged to get additional assistance. It shouldn't be if you need it. It should be mandatory. That way no one knows who's getting it. And if you need it at that time, you get it. This isn't, we keep acting like this is a big secret, but it's not a secret. When you have people involved, they're going to see and do things that are going to be stressful and traumatic on top of their personal lives. And when it starts struggling enough, in our Fatal 10 research, we realize that when you have enough red flags, you're going to have a serious problem. And we can see these red flags for miles. It's not like nobody, everybody goes, oh, where did that come from? You've seen it. You've been talking about it for months or years.
Right. And that's all fine when you get to the age of you're in these workplace environments and things like that. But I mean, this stuff shows up differently in teens versus adults.
Yes.
Again, that takes us back to when do you step in, which can be at any point in time. But what do you do for the teens?
Well, it needs to actually happen way before that, too. So I think of it like a ball that's rolling in space with a bunch of little sticks coming out of it, right? It's an entry point. All of these are different entry points. So you can't say, oh, I wish you would have started this in kindergarten and you're 50, right? Because it's just not going to work. So you meet them where they're at. I want to start inoculation programs in pre-K and kindergarten where you teach children how to get along. You teach them the stress that they're going to have as children, the things that they'll learn, but you teach them in small increments so that the stress isn't overwhelming, but they can deal with it and they don't turn to things like substances later on. They're not codependent on people to get everything in their life done. They don't have all these additional issues showing up later in life because you start early. In fact, you start with expectant mothers and families. You teach them how to get through some of these things that they're dealing with. If you're stressed, if you find out that a young mother just died and you look back and she was reaching out for assistance, right? Again, it's this silence piece. She's reaching out for assistance and she says, hey, I need some groceries. I have nothing in the fridge. And some people come in there to help her and say, okay, I'll get you something. I had somebody online recently asked for food. And one of the responses were from this individual was, I'll get you a $20 fishing license. And I thought, okay, number one, it's cold out. I appreciate the sentiment, but maybe she's not a fisher. Maybe she doesn't have fishing rods. Like it's, I'll help you with food. We'll meet up here, blah, blah, blah. And then other people were like, do you need food again? It's like, well, people do have to eat more than once, a week. It was the mindset of all these different people coming in with their input, some helpful, some not helpful, and some very ridiculous comments. That's why people don't come forward. So the idea is if we can teach young people before they have children and families, some of these things that they're going to encounter as young families. Like I remember coming in the military and getting married and starting my family. And I was like, oh my gosh, we're dirt poor. I didn't expect this. We're getting hand-me-down furniture. I needed things, but people didn't know because by the time that they've grown out of that stage is 20 or 30 years. They're not thinking back to who they were then. So start meeting people where they're at. What do young people need when they're starting off? What stressors do you see coming? How can you assist them in that? How can you guide them and mentor them? And it's like that at every stage. Our teenagers, I just got my new book out. It's called The Tactical Pause for Teens. And it talks about how the brain reacts to stress and to different things. And it's much different than adults. And when you don't get ahead of that, you can make really poor decisions and bad choices just by reacting than if you knew exactly what you were dealing with and it would empower you. So it's those type of things that we can do early on for young people as they mature and as they grow up that really give them a sense of this is how my body is, this is how my brain reacts, and then you have some control over the response because you know what's going to happen. It's those little pieces that really help give them a brighter future and something to look forward to.
And that's all fine and dandy. I think it all sounds great. But how do you reach them?
Well, you have to get out there. Well, I'll tell you right now, I put my stuff out everywhere, but here's another thing I'm running into is there are certain agendas being run in this field. And it's really sad to say that. A lot of it's run by money and grants. And they're, if you're not telling them what they want to hear or your research doesn't back up what they think should be said, it doesn't happen. And I'll give you a perfect example. If my research on law enforcement suicide had said it was the job and solely the job and PTSD that caused all my suicides, I would be sitting on every talk show in America right now and deemed this major expert. But the truth is that's not what the research shows. And I don't tell the research what to say. I just say what it says to me. And what it tells me is we have personal problems. We have relational issues. We have substance use problems. We have stress that we don't deal with appropriately, right? We're doing things like, we're having affairs outside of our marriage. We're doing things that put us at risk as humans, as partners, as family members, as, coworkers. Those are the things that are causing us issue. And as humans across occupations, it really doesn't matter. Those things are very, very similar. But because it talks about personal accountability and personal responsibility and poor choices and bad decisions, those are dirty words. And nobody wants to talk about that because that means that we have to invest time and energy into figuring out how to fix this, which we've done, but nobody wants to hear that because then we can't say, oh, well, these people that are first responders, their job, yes, it's stressful. Yes, we need to support them, but we also need to look at what's causing their issues. And their issues aren't all the job. It's these things that they're struggling with in stress and certain things that they brought with them to the job that they're not dealing with appropriately. So the maladaptive coping mechanism really is what's causing the major issues and how they deal with stress.
It just boggles my mind. I love everything you're saying, and that, and I picked up on this in the meetings and stuff that we're in, and which is why I was so glad to have you in here today, because you don't look at everything as the norm and the conventional ways that they're doing things, and it's just like you have done your research and you have the evidence that things are this way. put it out there and we support you.
Well, and it's the sad part is that at some point you really have to step back from the big picture and say, are our goals really the same? And at some point I actually start questioning, like, I kind of sit back myself and I go, man, this just doesn't seem right. If we're trying to save lives, then why are we running the same agendas and the same narratives that are getting the same results as last year, which are nothing? In fact, numbers are going up. But here's what happens. We have people on one side of this table that will say, hey, if we have like a panel, we have people on this side of the table saying, hey, we need more money. The numbers are going up. We've got to keep doubling down on what we're doing. And the truth is the numbers are going up, not because of it's because of what you're not doing, which is trying something different. Yep. And we're getting stuck there. And in fact, one of the articles that I wrote, I talk about this necropsy of the sacred cow, suicide prevention, that we have really made it this sacred cow, and how dare you come in and try to do anything to it. We do these trainings and we teach lay people and we do all these things, which is great. But it has to be more than just teaching them. They have to be able to put it into action. They have to see it ahead of time. They have to be able to predict things. They have to see big picture. When I talk to somebody, I've been in thousands of training rooms, and I can tell you that when I look out in the crowd, I can see people I'm going to have a problem with, or that have an issue, or they're dealing with something because of their body posturing. They start crying. They say certain things. We have to get to that point where we can predict these things, see them coming, and get people the help that they need without them having to ask for it. And right now, we're asking people who are struggling tremendously to start making sound decisions. We go from a 10-digit number on the phone to give them a 3-digit code, and still people don't know what the code is. They're freaking out because they're afraid when they call in what's going to happen, because what we need to be doing is saying, listen, here's what will happen if you call that 988 number. Or here's what will happen if you call out to this. We have one for first responders that's Safe Call Now and Serve and Protect. And I walk them through that. If you call that number, here's what's going to happen the moment somebody picks up that phone. And you walk them through the steps, because the greatest part of this is the fear. They want to get help, but they fear what's going to happen on the other side. And anybody in their right mind, right, would go, that's not okay. I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, that's very true. Very true. I like that. So you've said that by the time someone is in crisis, we've already missed the earlier opportunities.
Many opportunities. And
What tends to happen in that space between something feels off and full crisis?
Well, I try to look at it like the visual piece here. So let's imagine you're standing up on a hill and you see this flowing river. And we have, the psychological autopsies, which we do for a course. We try to go back and figure out the why, right? But that's kind of like you're pulling, when the people talk about pulling people out at the bottom of the river, they're pulling them out, right? And they've already passed away. And I'm like, okay, well, that's the kind of the psychological autopsy piece right there, is you're trying to figure out why they did this. So then everybody goes, well, let's run to the front and go to the top of the river, and we'll find out why they're jumping in the first place. Now, we're still going to let them jump, but we're just going to find out why. And I'm going, that makes absolutely no sense. See, we shouldn't even be near the water until we know how to swim. So we're actually missing a very big piece of the picture here. Prevention models are what we call the disease model. So they operate in, you look okay right now, but when you get sick, go to the doctor and they'll take care of you, right? They wait till you get sick. You've already got stuff inside of you that's causing issue, and eventually it'll come out. So we wait for that kind of model. Well, that model also brings in a lot of money. If I can keep you sick enough to keep you alive, I can keep putting you full of pills and treatments and whatever. And that's kind of a cycle we've kind of gotten into. We've kind of gotten used to that.
Don't get me going on that one.
Yeah, right? Well, and and it's not like a conspiracy thing. It's like it is what it is. And we need to step back for a moment and realize that this is a big picture piece. And I kept thinking, why is this stuff happening? Well, the inoculation, model is much different. So the prevention model operates in the disease model, and it says, oh man, I hope I don't have another one of those, meaning a suicide or an adverse outcome. We don't want another one of those. And we give condolences, we move on for a few days, and then we have another one. Man, I hope we don't have another one. Well, the inoculation paradigm says, what if we never had one at all? See, it operates from the disease model. So it gets you into the doctor. It gets you at a baseline. It looks at your blood work. It looks at everything happening in your life, big picture. And it says, now we want to maintain this level of wellness. Now, of course, if you go in there and you haven't been taking care of yourself in years, you're not going to be like 100%, but you're going to be as well as you can be. But you're going to know if you get like sick or something happens, you're going to feel it much sooner because you've been operating at a very high level. You're going to see it sooner. You're going to feel it sooner. You're going to start reacting sooner. You're not going to wait till you get full blown and sick and you can't do anything before you go back. So the inoculation model really prepares you to operate at a certain level all the time, physically, emotionally, mentally, and it keeps you at that level. So it's going to minimize the bad things that are coming at you. They're not going to hit you as hard as they would normally. But if you're operating in a disease model where you're already sick, you're worn down, you're tired, you're burnt out, you're suffering with depression, and then you have that one more thing, it's that straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak. And that's how it starts to operate in your body. And then everything becomes, literally a major crisis where it shouldn't be.
If communities could change one thing about how we respond to struggle, what would be the biggest difference in keeping people out of crisis?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because I have a new program actually that I'm going to be introducing soon. It's called St. Clair County Cares. So it talks about community advocacy, resources, education, and solutions, because I'm all about solutions. I don't want to hear about problems without at least one solution being brought to me, because I think everybody plays a part. But it's literally getting into the communities. It's getting into the places where some people don't have the same care, where there's inequity and different things playing out, and to get into those communities and involve those people in that community aspect to learn how to take better care of themselves, to prepare as parents, to prepare as young people for the things that are going to happen in their life, and get everybody involved. It'll be like a one-stop shop, so to speak. So I have things for, the fatal 10 for maternal risk. In the state of Illinois, we have certain risk factors that may be different in other places, but we will address those risks within the county for those individuals and get them the resources that they need and point them in the right direction without them having to go to 10 or 15 different places. Because the truth is, when someone's in crisis or contemplates suicide, it's usually a personal issue that they are dealing with that has become, it's out of control. They don't feel like they have options. They don't have solutions, and they don't know where to go. And a lot of times they don't want to ask, because maybe what they're asking about has some stigma, some embarrassment, some shame attached to it, or they just don't know where to go. And we want to reduce that piece, get the community involved, and start lowering mortality and morbidity within the county.
Love that. Can't wait to see how it unfolds. Olivia, thank you so much for helping us see this differently, not just what crisis looks like, but how everyday moments shape whether someone feels safe enough to speak. For all of you listeners, if today's conversation resonated with you, whether you're the one struggling or the one supporting, let this be your reminder that silence isn't weakness. It's often learned, and it can be unlearned. If this episode meant something to you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. That's how we spark conversations. That's how we build community. That's how we keep people out of crisis, doing it together. Until next time, keep shining. Thank you for joining us on Glow for Hope. If today's conversation resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Remember, your mental wellness matters, and you are never alone. For more resources and support, visit glowforhopenfp.org. That's glowforhopenfp.org. Stay connected, stay hopeful, and keep the conversation going. Until next time, keep shining.
This podcast does not and is not intended to provide medical advice. The information presented on this podcast should not be interpreted or construed in any way as a replacement or substitution for medical advice. It is important that you discuss your condition, treatment options, or any questions that you may have with your doctor or healthcare provider.